Hey, Harry. Not used to getting up this early?
Hey, James. Oh, come on. I always get up easily when it's about traveling. And I want to thank you again. I'm really happy you invited me along. 3 days in a great hotel, meeting experienced developers. It's a dream.
I'm very happy to. And as a bonus, we'll have time to continue our interesting lessons. Now, before boarding and later on the plane, we'll have plenty of time. And I'd love to grab a coffee and go over an important topic with you. Arrow functions in JavaScript. What they are and when to use them.
Awesome. I'm ready.
All right. You already know that functions in JavaScript are our helpers. We give them tasks and they perform them. Usually, functions are written quite formally. You have to write a special word, then a name, then parentheses, and then curly braces.
Yeah, I remember that regular functions take up a few lines.
Exactly. And to make life easier, JavaScript introduced a shorter way to write functions, arrow functions. They're similar to regular ones, but faster and more compact.
Oh, it's like this. A regular function is a full essay with detailed explanations. An arrow function is a Twitter post, delivering the same key idea but in just a few characters.
Perfect metaphor. You deliver the idea quicker, without all the formalities. An arrow function is like a quick sketch instead of a full oil painting.
I like that comparison.
Arrow functions are especially handy when you need to quickly perform a small task. For example, processing a list of data, making a simple check, or returning a result.
So if the task is small, it's better to use an arrow function?
Yes, exactly. You save space, and your code becomes cleaner and more readable.
And why are they called arrow functions?
Because between the parameters and the action, you put a special symbol, the arrow. It's a combination of the equal sign and the greater than sign. It looks like an arrow pointing to the result of the action, as if you're saying, here's what I get and here's what I'll do with it.
Sounds like a road sign. You get a direction, you turn.
Exactly. Arrow functions help you quickly see what comes in and what comes out without extra words.
Got it. So instead of writing function and curly braces, we use this arrow?
In most cases, yes, but there are some more simplifications. For example, if your function has just one parameter, you don't even have to put parentheses around it. It's like writing a quick note with just the recipient's name. Everyone still knows who it's for.
Are there any more advantages?
Of course. They make the code cleaner by removing unnecessary constructions. And arrow functions also automatically remember the environment they were created in. We'll talk about that in more detail a little later.
Interesting. So an arrow function means both compactness and convenience?
Exactly. But like any superpower, arrow functions have their own special features and limitations.
And we'll talk about those next?
Yes. Today we'll start with the basics. When it's better to use an arrow function and when to use a regular one.
Awesome. I like that plan.
Perfect. So, while we're waiting for boarding, I'll tell you a few more important points about how regular functions differ from arrow functions. All right, Harry. We figure out that arrow functions make writing code shorter and more convenient. Now let's dive a little deeper and see what other cool features they have.
I love how compact it is. Is there anything else we can simplify?
Yes, if an arrow function has only one parameter, you don't even need to put parentheses around it.
Really? So no parentheses, just the name?
Exactly. It's like writing a quick note to a friend. If you mention just their name, without explanations, no parentheses needed. But if there's more than one parameter, or none at all, parentheses are required.
Got it. 1. No parentheses. Many parentheses are a must.
Correct. And here's another cool thing. If the body of the function has just one action, and you want to return the result, you don't have to write the word return or use curly braces.
So I just write what to return right after the arrow.
Exactly. It's like ordering coffee with one word. Latte. And the barista immediately knows what you want, no long explanations needed. An arrow function immediately returns the result.
Very handy. But what if I need to do something more complex, like several actions?
Then you'll need curly braces and an explicit return. so it's clear where the function's body begins and ends.
So the simpler the task, the simpler the writing?
Exactly. Arrow functions are perfect for short, clear actions.
Okay, and what about that mysterious this you mentioned?
Ah, that's really important. Normal functions in JavaScript have their own value of this, which depends on how the function was called.
So this in a regular function changes depending on the situation?
Yes, it's like a chameleon. The color of this can change depending on its surroundings.
And arrow functions?
Arrow functions do not create their own this. They inherit it from the place where they were created.
Like they inherit a family castle they were born in?
Perfect metaphor. Here's another one. A regular function is like a person who can speak with their own voice. An arrow function is like an echo that has no voice of its own. It just repeats the voice of the place where it appeared. They simply take this from the outer context and don't change it no matter what happens.
And why would that be useful?
Very often. For example, when you're writing event handlers or timers. This needs to refer to the correct object, and a regular function could easily lose that context.
So if I use an arrow function, I don't have to worry where this will point?
Exactly. It's like having a reliable compass that always shows the right direction, even in the fog.
Wow, that's really handy.
Especially when working with arrays, like when you loop through elements and need access to the outer this inside each small function.
So arrow functions are like a lifesaver for small tasks inside big processes?
Absolutely. You can be sure the arrow points exactly where it should, and your code becomes much clearer.
But it sounds like arrow functions are just perfect. Are there any downsides?
There are. They're not suitable for everything. And we're about to talk about that because it's important to know not only the strengths, but also the limitations.
Intriguing. I want to hear more.
Perfect. Let's continue. While they haven't announced boarding yet, there are still some interesting points ahead. And as always, I have a few surprises for you. Okay, Harry, we already know that arrow functions are fast, convenient, and they reliably hold their this. But like any tool, they have their limitations. And I want to talk about that too.
I thought so. Nothing can be perfect in everything.
Exactly. And the first limitation is very important. Arrow functions cannot be used as constructors.
Constructors? What does that mean?
Remember when we talked about how a regular function can create new objects using the new keyword? Well, arrow functions can't do that. If you try to call them with new, you'll get an error.
So an arrow function isn't a builder, but rather a helper who does one simple task?
Perfect comparison. Not a builder, more like an assistant. It just does its job, but doesn't build new houses.
Okay, got it. What other limitations are there?
Second, arrow functions don't have their own arguments object.
Whoa, what does that mean?
A regular function always has a special arguments object that contains all the passed-in values. An arrow function doesn't. If you try to access arguments inside an arrow function, you either get an error or something you didn't expect.
So an arrow function doesn't remember what you passed into it?
It simply uses the arguments from an outer function if one exists. If not, then nothing. So if you need to work with all the passed values, it's better to use a regular function.
Okay, I'll remember. Arrow functions are for simple things where you don't need to keep track of all the inputs.
Exactly. And here's another subtle point. Arrow functions aren't suitable for object methods when you need dynamic this.
So if I have an object and I want its method to refer to that object through this, I should use a regular function.
Exactly right. If you write an object's method as an arrow function, this won't point to the object itself. It'll point back to wherever the method was taken from, and that causes confusion.
Got it. So an arrow function inside an object is like a waiter who forgets which restaurant he's working for.
Ha ha ha, brilliant metaphor. Exactly. That's why object methods are usually written with regular functions.
So many nuances. Can I try to sum it up to make sure I understand?
Of course. It's important to know these little details to choose correctly between regular and arrow functions.
Arrow functions are awesome when you need to quickly do a small task, preserve the outer this, and make the code cleaner. but they're not good for creating objects, handling arguments, or being used as object methods.
Bravo, Harry. Absolutely right. Arrow functions are a great tool for writing shorter and clearer code in certain situations, especially for simple operations and keeping the right this context. But it's important to understand their differences from regular functions to use them effectively.
Awesome. So you have to use them wisely, where their strengths really shine.
A programmer is like a craftsman. He chooses the right tool for the right task. Sometimes it's a hammer, sometimes it's a paintbrush.
And arrow functions are the fast paintbrush for light tasks?
Exactly. And for solid constructions, it's better to use regular functions.
Super. Now when I see the arrow in the code, I'll know it means a quick and compact action.
You're already getting closer to reading code like a book.
Thanks, James. These lessons, they're the best journey of my life.
And for me too. And you know what? We're just getting started. The most exciting parts are still ahead. Ready to keep traveling through the basics of JavaScript?
Of course. Let's go.
Then buckle up, we're taking off.